Thanks for joining us. And today we're going to talk about Kriya Yoga Demystified. So in Kriya Yoga, there is a lot of mystification about Kriya Yoga from a variety of different schools. Now we know that Kriya Yoga comes from Lahiri Baba or Lahiri Mahashai, who was basically taught by his teacher Babaji, and then it was passed down through various different lineages. One of the most predominant lineages is the Panchanan Bhattacharya lineage. That's the one that I am part of. And Panchanan was a householder yogi. Originally he was actually a monastic who renounced his monastic views to follow Lahiri Baba. But the thing about Kriya Yoga is that it is a very powerful technique for getting internal, for getting into a state that is called pratyahara, or internalization. And it has very effective means for doing this in an attentional breathing, this Kriya Pranayam. And this form of breathing has an effect on the body, on the central nervous system. It helps to bring one into a low idle state, and then one gets into this internalization. Once one is internalized, one can start to have experiences of the inner energetic vistas, if you will, and have different spiritual experiences, mystical states, and so on that can arise out of it, getting into this deep meditative state. So Kriya Yoga is very effective for that. But there's a lot of mythologizing around Kriya Yoga among different types of schools. Some of them are more monastic focused schools and some of them are householder schools, but really they mystify Kriya Yoga, and so they talk about it as a vehicle for having an awareness of God, of the divine. And certainly when one gets into an internalized state and experiences aspects of one's nature that one is not usually aware of, they can seem mystical. From my perspective, these experiences are actually natural, and it's really a filtering process of socialization that has made us discard many of those internal experiences. When we are children, we do have sort of different types of experiences that as adults we would classify as being slightly unusual. And so Kriya Yoga can help to open one's filters, to remove the filtering out of extraneous information that we don't consider to be practical as adults. And so Kriya Yoga can be a way that we can get back into that more kind of a natural perception of what we are experiencing internally, right? And so, but one of the things about Kriya Yoga, which is slightly distasteful from my perspective, is that people will try to purposely mystify Kriya Yoga, to talk, with the tall tales of the different, Kriya Yoga stories. And certainly there are many stories that have been spoken about and printed as well about Lahiri Baba, that he did not actually tell himself, but were tall tales, if you will, in the Kriya Yoga community. These are fantastical stories that are meant to attract people's interest. So, things like bilocation, various powers, yogic powers, and so on. All of these different stories mystify the actual aspect of Kriya Yoga that makes it so effective. And really what it is a form of intentional breathing that helps to bring the body into a low idle state. And when you get into a low idle state and you're no longer aware of your bodily sensations, the regular senses that you have in the daily life because you are deeply internalized, you start to experience these sort of inner energetic vistas. And all sorts of stuff can be in there, right? There's really no need to mystify Kriya Yoga and tell these tall tales, because everybody's experience in meditation, once they get into an internalized meditative state, is unique. So some people are very preoccupied with seeing saints, right? They want to have these experiences of that. They want to see, these different ishtas, these forms of God. And so in the religious community, in people who are more religious minded and have these strong, religious symbols, they want to experience their inner awakening in terms of these religious or spiritual symbols. And I certainly understand that, somebody from that particular spiritual perspective will resonate, for instance, with Krishna or Vishnu, or it could be, with Western concepts of religion, Jesus Christ, etc. And they want to have these experiences. They want to see saints. But with Kriya Yoga, the proof is in the pudding. All you need to do is follow the simple process of Kriya Yoga, of this intentional breathing, which is very effective, and you get into an internalized state and you start to experience your own unique internal experiences. And so at Modern Kriya, our website, modernkriya.com, we teach a distilled version of Kriya Yoga, which is called heart rate variability resonance breathing. This is a term that was coined by Forrest Knudsen. And the genius in Forrest's approach is that he really demystifies what's happening in Kriya, that it isn't about burning up karma. It isn't about escaping to a higher plane. What it really is going deep inside the body and inside, leveraging the body's natural response to a intentional breathing that brings one into an internalized state. And really, the Kriya Yoga leverages the central nervous system, in particular the parasympathetic nervous system, which is talked about as the rest and digest aspect of the nervous system. So by doing this intentional breathing in Kriya Yoga, you are stimulating or activating that aspect of your nervous system, which helps to bring you internal, right? And when you get internal, you realize that you are more than just the body. You're not just what you think is the body or what you experience through our regular five senses, but there is deeper, more subtle aspects to us than what we habitually experience as adults. So Kriya Yoga very effectively brings you into that. You don't need to be convinced about a flying sage or a bilocating saint to try out the simple, practical breathing of heart rate variability resonance breathing or learning Kriya Yoga from an authorized teacher. So there's no mystification that is required with Kriya Yoga. And I find that folks who want to spread stories about Kriya Yoga, fantastical stories as a means to attract students, are really doing a disservice to students. They're setting up an expectation that the students must have their inner development unfold in a certain way, and this is just not true. What you want to do, your spiritual experience, your internal experience is unique to you. And Kriya Yoga is a really great way to start that process, to get you inside so that you're starting to experience those inner states, if you will. It's not just about getting to a state of samadhi, of super consciousness. There's many, many steps along the way. There's many things to work out, many things to transform. And folks who just sort of want this spiritual fantasy, that's supported by these tall tales of saints and so on, are really, it's a fantasy. It will not be a reality. You need to work, at your spiritual sadhana, at your spiritual practice, right? And Kriya Yoga is a very effective means to do that. So Kriya Yoga is a very practical and direct path for getting internal, right? All you need to do is to do the Kriya Yoga techniques. And then if you're open, if you can allow and open up your inner space and embrace what you're experiencing in your meditation, you will realize that things will start to change for you. They start to transform. You may get into these deeper states of consciousness. So one of the first things that happens is, as I said, pratyahara, right? So one may feel as if you are receding from your senses. The body can feel like it is frozen, or it is a shadow, or it is extremely still. The second thing that can happen in Kriya Yoga is that your breath can start to become very, very slight. It starts to shallow out and then it disappears basically from your awareness. This is something that Lahiri Baba called the tranquil breath, and that leads to a very internalized state. It can also lead to something called dharana, which is where your perception basically of this, everything around you, your body, etc., vanishes from your awareness and you're inside this sort of dark cave, if you will. It's an internalized void. And that is, in different spiritual traditions, and especially some schools of Buddhism, they covet that as one of the ultimate states, if you will, of meditation. But it's not. It's just a stepping stone to deeper states. But it can be very revolutionary for people who haven't experienced it before, because suddenly you are in this void where you're no longer encumbered by bodily sensations, by thinking, by any of that, and you can just experience the pure beingness of being in that state, right? That usually leads into something deeper, which is called dhyan, which means absorption, especially when you start to have internal perceptions of things that can feel very primordial, right? One may see a spiritual form, And then as you become drawn into that perception and you start to become one with that and you resonate and the boundary between your perception and your awareness disappears and you become that, you move into the state called samadhi, right? Which is, talked about as superconscious state. But there are many Kriya Yoga schools and tall tales about, sages flying and bilocating and all of this kind of thing. And in a way, the attraction of those fantastical stories, I think, are people who are looking for sort of shortcuts, if you will, to escape their present circumstances. They're not actually looking to work through, all of the stuff that they have to really clean themselves up, to transform, and then to take their awareness to a higher level. They're just looking for a quick escape or for somebody to do the work for them. And that will never work in anything. If you want to, be proficient in anything, you need to work at it. And it's the same thing with Kriya Yoga, the same thing with spirituality. You need to work at it. And so folks who are, continuously trying to mystify Kriya Yoga and in a way like to hold the Kriya Yoga secrets, if you will, from others and say, well, I have the secret is so powerful and you can't have it. You have to, and if you want it, then you have to follow me for a lifetime. Like it's a really warped kind of way of trying to teach something that is so powerful and so practical, right? In our school, we don't hold things back from students, right? So we teach them, the first level of Kriya Yoga is new students, and don't hold anything back, right? Very clear, because Kriya Yoga is very clear. That's why Lahiri Baba taught it, right? That's why it was so effective for people of different religions, and you didn't have to believe anything, fantastical stories. You didn't have to sign a pledge. All of this social hierarchy really takes you away from Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is about liberation, right? It's about liberation of, the individual Atman, soul, and so on, and union with the divine. It is not about becoming a slave to a particular teacher. So if you run into Kriya Yoga teachers out there that are purposely trying to mystify Kriya Yoga and withhold things from you and so on, I would really tread carefully and maybe want to look at some different options. So if you have any questions about this video, feel free to send me an email at info@modernkriya.com. Also check our website at modernkriya.com and our YouTube channel. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.